Good afternoon from sunny, thankfully, UK today. I'm delighted to have with me Trish Finnegan, crime writer from north of me. So I'm in leafy Buckinghamshire, and I believe you're in North Wales, no, the Wirral,
Wirral,
Liverpool direction.
Liverpool
Fabulous.
direction. Yes, Wirral's
Yes,
a little peninsula and we stick out between North Wales and Liverpool.
nice,
We're bounded by the Irish Sea, River Mersey and the River Dee.
lovely. Do you have the views from where you are?
From where I am, no.
Oh,
It's nice enough where I am, but no, we're not
mm,
overlooking water really here.
okay,
It's more semi-rural, I suppose you'd
right,
call it.
nice.
Lots of trees.
Nice. Well, we plan to retire to the in theory the south coast, but the south coast is really expensive, so we'll probably go north Devon, North Dorset, perhaps. And I've said as long as we can go to the spare room, crane our necks, and there's an inch square bit of sea, I'll be happy with that sort of distance. Anyway, we're here to talk about writing, so we'll go back to the beginning. How did you become a writer? How were you inspired, and what was your start in writing? Can you remember what you wrote first?
I can. Well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me along today.
You're very welcome.
Um, I've always liked writing, even when I was a child. My head was always full of rubbish and fairies, as my nan used to say.
Nice.
But I've always liked it. I mean, the first thing I ever wrote that I clearly remember, I must have been about 9 years old. And we were at school and they set us an exercise where you had an object and you had to write a story about a page
Mm,
on that object. And showing my age now, I think it was Avon did a perfume called Aquamanda.
right.
And I got this bottle of Aquamanda and I had to write a story about it. And I finished up staying in at playtime as well because I wanted to finish my story. And I wrote about 4 pages of story, age 9,
Wow.
about
Wow.
this bottle of Aquamanda about Tarzan, would you believe? It made me think of jungles for some reason. And I
Mm,
wrote about this journalist that had to fly out to interview Tarzan and it was so good. Apparently, the teacher read it out to the whole class, and that's the first time I thought, "Oh, people like my writing, and I'm
yeah.
really proud about this." And I really was chuffed to bits about that.
Mm,
I never reached those heights again for a very long time, but I still enjoyed the writing.
mm,
I, scribble little stories and things like that down. Obviously, went through school, left school, started work, got too busy, family, but I was still
life.
doing little scribbles.
Mm,
I wrote little stories for my kids as they were growing up. I remember in particular one was called the Little Worm series that I used to
mm,
tell them stories about this little worm called Little Worm.
mm,
That was never published or anything. That was just a family thing.
mm,
Um, when I found I had a little more time as the kids grew, I joined a writers group and listening to them and doing my own writing and so on. And I realized I was starting to take it a whole lot more seriously. I'd never actually considered being a writer could be a career move.
mm.
But when I started going to these groups, and I thought, it seems I'm actually not bad, not as bad as I thought I was, because I always thought, who wants to read my rubbish? It's all fairy stuff, because
Yeah.
that's what I've been told. Like it's concentrate on the real world girl.
Well, you would hope that a writers' group would be sort of balanced between, because even the lovely as it is to hear, oh yes, I really like that. It's lovely, but not terribly helpful. Whereas with a critique group, a writers' group, they'll be kind but practical. They'll tell you what for them
Yes,
works and
and
doesn't
that's what
work.
I got.
Mm,
That's what I got. It's disbanded now. Actually, it was the group I got into. I was with a couple of groups in the end, but I got in with a
mm,
group called we call them the Ace of Scribes,
well, that's clever.
and people were, I would say, honest but kindly honest with me.
Mm,
And if something
mm,
wasn't working, they'd say.
mm,
We had all different genres writing there, people doing their own. I mean, we had a romance writer who's sadly now passed, but
mm,
she kept trying to, when I started working on Bluebird, which is my first published book,
mm,
um, she kept trying to take it towards the romance side of it. And I was thinking it's not really a romance. You know, there's a
Mm.
part where a teenager is beaten
Right.
severely.
Right.
That's not romantic.
No. No.
But yeah. Um, so I must have done about 27 copies of this before I got a copy I was halfway happy with.
Mm.
And as I say, Bluebird actually was the fourth book I'd written. The first book was just absolute complete rubbish and should have been burnt. The other two, I really did that one just to see if I could do it.
Mm.
I realised I could. I did another two, I suppose, just stretching my wings a bit, but they've never been published. And then, as I say, I'd had this story buzzing around my head for, oh God, years and years and years and years.
Mm.
Kept taking different forms, but it was the same basic story.
Mm.
And then I thought, I'm going to write it. So I did, as I say, and I must have gone through about 27 copies of it before I got this
Wow.
one, which I thought, I'm going to send this out and see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. And
And I got
and
a lot of knockbacks, but hey, you know.
mhm. And you what happened when you finally did you self-publish? Did you get
No, I
picked
didn't.
up or
What I did in the end it's actually a string of coincidences.
mm.
Um, I'd started going to Crown Publishment in Scotland, run by Graham
Yes.
Smith.
Yes, that's where we met. We've
Excellent,
met.
excellent.
Yes,
Yeah,
someone I've
very
actually
supportive.
met in real life.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Excellent, very supportive. But
it's great.
because I've been sending Bluebird out and I wasn't getting anywhere, I was starting to feel quite despondent and thinking,
Mm.
well, actually, maybe I am just rubbish and I should just
Mm.
stop and just play, use it as a hobby like I always have done, stop trying to
Right.
get serious about it.
Mm.
Um, anyway, I met a few people who sort of were being quite reassuring, and I thought,
Mm.
okay, well, let's give this another go,
Mm.
And I thought, if I don't publish this year, I'm going to say it's not meant to be. I'm
Right.
just a hobby writer, and which is fine. People who write for hobbies. That's what I've been doing for years.
Mm.
Anyway, a friend was telling me about another friend of hers whose cousin was working a burning chair. Actually, he's a co-owner. They've started
Mm.
it out,
Mm.
and they were looking around. They were on the lookout for someone,
Mm.
and I thought, oh, yes, I'll write to them. Just see. Wrote to
Mm.
them.
Mm-hmm.
Never heard anything back, and thought, oh well,
Oh,
it's
that's yeah,
just one of
yeah,
those.
yeah.
Then I got another email saying, did you get our reply?
Oh,
We've been waiting for you to contact us. And
wow.
for some reason or other, it had been sitting there. It hadn't come through to me, but when I went into the site, there
Mm.
it was. I found it.
Oh,
And they'd waited for me. So I thought, well, they didn't
oh.
have to do that, did you? But anyway, so I was like, terribly sorry. I didn't see it, didn't come through. I found it
Mm.
in the inbox, but it was in the site. It wasn't actually, it didn't come through to the page. And
Right.
um, sent it off. They liked it, wanted to see more, sent them more. They liked that. And the rest, as they say, is history.
Wonderful. And are you contracted to a certain number of, because normally it's two or three and you have three out. Will you keep going, do you think?
Um, I have three out. I'm not contracted to any at the moment, but they're open to any I want to send to them,
Right.
which is really good. They've just said they'd like to see. I asked them about writing other genres because I've still got the second and third book I wrote, which haven't been, which are a completely different genre. I suppose
Okay.
you'd call it. Um, it's part wartime, part modern day. I suppose you'd
Good.
call it romance, but
Mhm.
anyway, it's totally different from what I'm writing now.
Mm.
And they said, well, if you're going to do that, it's not really our thing. But if you want
Mm.
to send it to someone else, that's fine.
Okay.
But please use a different name because Trish Finnegan
Yes.
writes crime.
Yes. No, exactly. Even if you just went with initials or created a middle name with an initial or something, at least not exactly the same, because even though the covers would likely be very different, readers do tend to expect the same kind of thing if you're writing
Yeah.
that.
Well, anyway, I
Mm.
was sort of playing with the idea of Patricia Finn. Give
Oh
me spelled my
yes.
my full
Yeah.
first name. No one calls
Yeah.
me Patricia anymore, but you know,
Right.
Trish.
Yeah.
But I thought Patricia Finn. I mean, anyway, but that's the thing for the future, maybe, because they're not published, and we'll see.
Yeah.
So yes, I've been with Burning Chair ever since. They they liked what I did.
Mm.
So I've written two more. I'm working on I've almost finished number four.
Okay.
And they've said, yes, send it to them. They're happy to see anything that I want to write in this series. And
Mm.
I thought, okay, so this is how it stands at the moment.
Right. And one of the things I was thinking when I was looking through your books on Amazon, do you age? Because in the first one, Samantha's a WPC and she's new. Do you age her? Obviously, as the books
Yes,
go on, she would progress in a career. So
yes.
she would have to age. Because I know with Ian Rankin and Rebus, he'd got to the point where Rebus had to retire. About back then, he had to retire, which then, because I don't think he was chatting the other day, and this came up, um, that Ian Rankin hadn't planned on writing so many books in that series. But
Mm,
because he was already aging and progressing through the ranks, that he'd sort of almost written himself into a corner where Rebus had to retire. But then they
yeah,
can come back as consultants and
yeah. I
so.
think I absolutely love the Rebus series.
Mm.
Having said that, when I first started reading Rebus, I didn't like him. I didn't like him
Okay.
very much. And I thought, if because I used to be a police officer in the
Yes.
70s and 80s,
Mm,
and I thought if we'd have worked together, I don't think we'd have been friends.
really.
But
But some people are written
as
that
I got
way.
on, yeah, as I got on with the series, I came to understand him, and I say I love the series,
Mm,
and I can understand Rebus now, but I'm still not sure we'd have been friends.
right.
It's,
Do you
it's,
have
it's,
have you watched
it's weird.
have you watched the TV series? Do you
I've watched some of them. I don't think I've watched them all yet.
right? Do you have a favourite read? Because there's been at least three, I think, of different actors playing them. See, I'm a John Hannah fan anyway, so I'd
Yeah, I don't think I have one. What's the other one? Brian Cox, was it?
um no, I can't remember his name. I'd have to Google it and add it to
Yeah,
the
I'd have to
notes.
Google. It
Right.
doesn't matter who plays him, to be honest with you. It's the
No,
character. It's
no.
not the actor I'm
Yeah,
bothered about. But
yeah.
yeah, I mean, but I love the Rebus books, and I
Mm,
love the way he ages him. I think it's a bit sad what he did at the end. Is he's given him a COPD and he's had to move to a ground
yeah.
floor flat, and that's all
Oh,
a bit sad. You think, oh,
yeah,
after that life, and he's
yeah,
finished up there. And
yeah, yeah.
but yeah,
So are you
yes.
predominantly a crime reader, being a crime writer? Do
No,
you read
well,
other
yeah,
other
I
genres?
read a lot of crime, but I also enjoy sci-fi. I'll
Okay.
read other things as well,
Mm,
just the rest of it.
mm,
But yeah,
mm.
Sam is going to age.
Right.
But I'm doing it slowly, and I don't know if I've got a cut-off point or whether I'm just going to keep going. If I have the ideas,
Mm,
I'll do it. If I don't,
yeah,
I don't.
yeah. I think if you age her slowly, that's a very wise decision because
Yeah.
then
So yeah.
then you can write almost not an infinite number of books. But because writers of certain genres should absolutely read the genre that they're writing. So you read science fiction, would be tempted to write in that genre? Find a third pen name?
Not really, no.
No. It's a tough. I say I don't read it. My
Yeah.
husband's an avid. He reads crime and sci-fi and avid, but you have to know what you're doing. He has a
Mm.
science and engineering background, so he knows what he's doing. But
Yeah.
and
I'm
you're
not sure I could do it all futuristic and all that type thing.
no, no,
It's not really my
no,
expertise, and it's
neither,
not my
neither,
history. It's
no.
yeah.
And it has to be a passion, doesn't it? You have to, even if you read the genre, you have to have enough of a passion for it to be able to write it, to know what you're
Yeah,
doing,
yeah.
because you are writing what you, with your police background, you are writing what you know.
I'm writing what I know.
Mm,
Say I like reading the crime books. I enjoy reading crime books, and
yeah.
but I like reading just for the pure enjoyment of it. Sci-fi.
Do you have a routine of writing? Do you have set hours per day, or just when time allows? You a morning
It's when time
or
allows.
evening?
I have a very busy life. Um, although I'm supposed to have retired now, supposed to have retired last year,
Right.
um, I haven't. I actually look after my grandchildren most
Okay.
days when
Mm.
the parents work. The baby I have all day um, for 3 days. I pick kids up from school every day, give them the
Right.
tea, keep hold of them.
Yeah.
Um, I'm also a magistrate, so I
Okay.
have to fit that in. And so it really is a matter of when and where. And
Mm.
husband likes the occasional bit of attention as well and going out for coffee and that type of thing, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he's
They
brought
have
another
they
pecking
have their
order.
uses, but yes, we have to find time for them, don't we? Yeah. So how
Yes.
did you find with the publisher? How did you find the editing process? Are you because you said you've been through this one book, you've been through 27 times. Did you find then, because even if I know if when I'm editing for authors directly, if they're planning on submitting it somewhere, I do say, well, however often we go through it, if you send it to an agent, send it to a publisher, they're going to want their changes as well. How did you find that when you had your first one, first, second, or third ones coming back? That did you find it easier as you went along?
Yes, it got easier as I understood the process. Um, I thought to start with, a book had to be perfect before you
Mm-hmm.
sent it out.
Mm-hmm.
And an awful lot of these rewrites I was doing were tinkering,
Right.
frankly. That's all I was tinkering.
Mm.
Um, and now I will send it out when I've done the best I can, but I'm not going to break my heart over it because I know
No.
they're going to do what they want to do with it.
Yeah.
And they're going to bounce it back and say, do this, do that, do.
Yeah.
So the first one, yes, they bounced it back. And I'm thinking, the work I put into that and they wanted me to do this and that. And
Yeah.
so anyway, I did it and it was a better book in the end.
Mm.
And I thought, right, well, I'm going to relax into the process. So I'll get it as good as I can without
Mhm.
killing myself.
Mm.
Then I
Yeah.
will let them do what they do. And
Mm.
then I will just do the alterations they want me to do.
Mm.
And so it's been a whole lot more relaxed the last couple of times.
Good. And do you find that you have the same editor each time for all three?
Yes,
Yeah.
I think I do. I've never actually met them, but yes, I
Okay.
I think they do. They
Yeah.
have the same person who does the book covers, and they
Okay.
have an editor, and there's various people there who do things. But I think
Mm.
they use the same team all the time
Sure.
for whatever it is.
Same pool. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what did you think of the covers? Did you get a choice?
Oh
Because a
yes,
smaller publisher will be generally more interactive with their authors, so you're
yes,
allowed to say to a point, I really don't like that. But I guess you have to trust them that they know what they're doing from a marketing point of view.
yes. I mean, that's the thing. Sit back. You know, these are the people who do it for a living. They know what they're
Mm.
doing. They want to make money off it too. So
Mm.
yeah, I have to trust them.
Mm.
But they also acknowledge this is my baby.
Yeah.
I've worked on this and I've spent a lot of hours on it, and I've got very
Mm.
fond of Sam, my protagonist, and
Mm.
all her little friends around her. You know, I've got very fond of them all, and I talk to them here at home as if they live next door. You know, and Paul knows if I'm talking about Phil, he knows exactly who I'm talking about because we
Okay.
don't know any Phils.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I've lost my train of thought now.
It's just whether they gave you a choice of covers.
Oh
But
yes, the covers.
because when I was traditionally published, they sent a blue one through with one picture and a pink one through with another picture. And my main character she wasn't a girly girl, and the picture actually on the blue cover was perfect. And so I said actually that's as it is. That's really happy with that one. And so
Yeah.
that was what
Well,
happened.
the first book with me, to be honest, we bounced it back and forth because we didn't really know what type of cover we were looking for.
Mm.
Um, we had a few, but I took out some of my old police pictures, and one of them was my class photo.
Okay.
And they had this idea of maybe looking like it's been ripped in half, and with sort of like murder boards and things on one half, and my police photo. And I thought, hang on, these were actual serving police officers.
Yes.
They
Yeah. You
might not
can't
be
do that.
happy to feature on the front of a book.
No. No.
Um, you know, especially without their permission, because I'm not in touch with most of them now. I've no idea what they're doing or where they are.
Mm. Sure.
Um, so although I like the idea, like because they wanted to show it as like innocence lost sort of
Right.
thing,
Uh-huh.
because you do a lot of growing up in your first year in the police, even if you join sort of straight from school like I did.
Mm.
Um, I thought I don't want to use an actual photograph of actual or what were actual serving officers. Everyone else
Yeah.
with the role tired now, but yeah. So I thought let's try something else, and they tried a couple of things. And if I absolutely hated one, I just went absolutely not, hate it.
Yeah.
And then I would send an idea, and they'd think, well, perhaps that wouldn't work so well. And finally, we hit on the one that we did. And I thought, I love that. I love the way it's bluebird. I
Mm-hmm.
love the moody look about it, the moody sky, the girl walking
Mm.
off into the distance. They're
Mm.
not all the girl in the red coat type things. This
No,
one's the girl
it's
walking
funny.
off in.
That's crop. This is the 10th. Yes, this is our the 10th spotlight, and that's cropped up quite often. Probably every
Yeah,
other one is
yeah, the girl in the red
this.
coat walking
Yes,
off.
yes.
This is a girl walking down by a dock by the looks of it, but
Mm.
anyway, if you read the book, you see how that features. But anyway,
Yeah.
others have got sort of other things, but they're all sort of blue, moody,
Yeah, they
dark
look really good
skies.
together. And that's the thing. If you're writing a series, it's like the lead child. That's the cliched silhouette of a man walking away. But you can tell instantly, apart from the fact that half the book is his name, the top half of his book is his name, that you can instantly see that once you've read the first one, those are your next books coming up.
Yeah.
And yeah, it
Well,
works really
they've
well.
sent me a couple since just saying, hey, have you considered upgrading to this one? I'm like,
Mm.
hate it. And
Yeah,
they'll listen and okay, we'll keep. What's wrong with what we've got? I like
yeah,
what we've got.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, we'll keep it. So,
Yeah.
fair enough.
See, I belong to there's a school that an American chap called Brian Cohen runs. That's author ad school that's all about Amazon ads, and they say that really you should change your cover every year or two. But I think when you're really attached to a cover, you don't want to change it. And if it
No, I don't want to change
works,
mine.
and yes, it may be when you're looking at, because part of the research for Amazon adverts is looking at your top 100 current, and you can look every couple of weeks to see what's changed. And it's either you want it to look like all the others so that because that's what readers expect, or you want it to stand out because they all blend in too much.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah,
difficult when you're.
I like my covers as they are. And
Yeah.
Bluebird, I actually got a number one orange banner.
Oh,
Never
nice.
achieved that. Yeah. Would you
Yes.
believe in Australia?
Wow.
Um,
Can you remember which
Australia?
category? Yeah.
Um,
Australians are mad for books.
abduction and something else.
Okay.
Abduction and something else. And I got
Yeah.
my orange banner. I don't care. I've got my orange banner.
Yeah. Yeah.
Screenshot it quick.
Even
You know.
yeah, even if it's just for a day, you've got it.
Yes, I got
Yes.
my orange banner. Never done it
Yeah.
since, but
Brilliant.
hey, that's
Brilliant.
okay.
Yeah. Do you read your reviews? This is a random question.
Um, I did,
Mm.
and most of them were good.
Okay,
Um,
good.
well, I haven't read them actually for a very long
No,
time.
I stopped reading mine. The book actually that was traditionally published, I read when it came out. I every yeah, pretty much actually every day because that was through a publisher, obviously traditionally published, and I the first it was I was just about to go to bed. I think it was 11 o'clock at night, and I read by the first. I don't know if there are any more because I haven't read it since then. The first one-star review said, I don't usually leave reviews for books, but this one was so bad that I felt I had to. And I just burst out laughing. I thought it was hilarious. And then I did carry on reading reviews, and of course it went out on NetGalley and to various bloggers. And the same book ended up being a blogger's favourite book of the year. It was the first in the serial data.
Mm,
And you just think what one person thinks is a load of rubbish, somebody else thinks it's the best book out of, and I think they probably read almost a book a day out of at least 100 books. Um,
mm,
so, but I don't think it's good for a writer to read reviews, really, because if you have
mm,
anything less than a 3 star, it just you think, why are you writing? And it's lovely the fact that you got to a point where you were going to jack it in and didn't because it's so disheartening. I've interviewed over 700 people on my blog. That was just a written interview. And in those few years, 2 authors came to me and said, "Could you remove it because I don't write anymore?" And I think
Mm.
that's really sad. Almost like you see on Facebook, I'm sure you've seen on Facebook, where people say, "I had a really good day yesterday. I wrote 10,000 words. Then I read them again today and they're rubbish, so I've deleted them."
I never
You just
delete any
think,
writing, because
no,
if you're not using it now, you might use it in the future.
absolutely,
I've
absolutely.
got, I've got a,
I
I've got a folder full of discarded stuff, which I'm
mm,
not going to throw away because I might want it sometime.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, no, you're never going to please everybody,
no,
never.
no,
So, as they say, as long as you can please most of the people most of the time, you're doing all right.
yeah, absolutely. So do you work on one thing at once or something else? Because you said you wrote
I
a
have
variety of
one.
stories back in the day.
I'm I'm working on book 4 at the moment, which has the working title Blue Flame, but
Okay.
that might change. I haven't
Mm,
decided yet. Um, but I'm also sort of drafting a book 5, just a few throwaway ideas. I'm also thinking about a prequel, and I'm also thinking of maybe a short story set, maybe present day,
mm,
of when they're all sort of going back, and what basically what happened to everybody
mm,
in the end. So
mm.
I'm sort of thinking about that and just drafting a few ideas on that.
Yeah, yeah,
So I thought if I ever do stop writing, I can just release this. Well, this is what happened in the end to
right,
everybody. Because
right.
I find it when a series stops and it just stops, and you're thinking, well, what then? You
Yes,
know, now
yes,
what?
yeah. Well,
But
short pieces are useful as reader magnets. So if you've got a
yeah,
newsletter, and then people want to read a sample of it, a complete sample of it, they're really useful as that.
yeah.
Yeah,
So I thought if I do rethink, do you know what? I'm either getting too old for this, or I can't be
right,
bothered anymore. I've run
right,
out of ideas.
right.
I can do the this is what happened in the end.
Yeah. Well, let's hope that doesn't happen.
Well,
That you,
we'll see. We'll
as
just
long
have
as
to
you
see.
enjoy it, as long as you enjoy it, keep going.
I do enjoy it. As I say,
Yeah,
it's a lifelong thing. It's something I've
yeah,
always done, even when I was just scribbling little things.
mm,
It's something I've always done. It's only in latter years, as I had more time, that I've started taking it seriously, and
yeah,
I was trying to get myself published.
yeah. Are
Yeah.
you a plotter? You say you're making notes. Are you a plotter? How much do you plot in advance before you
Um,
actually start
I'm
writing?
a hybrid. I'm a bit of both. I
Mm,
have certain points that I want. So I know they're there. I want them there.
mm,
What happens in between
yeah,
is
it's
we
the
wait and
fun bit.
see.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
know that's happening. I know that's happening. And I just have to wait and see.
And does the end, is the end the end? Do you find when you get to the end that it is what happens or what you thought would happen does actually happen? Or
No.
have you? Okay.
No,
Yeah.
the book
So
4 at
if you
the
go back
moment
and change things.
suddenly took itself off, and it did take itself off, because sometimes my characters, when I'm typing, will start talking to each other and leave me out, and I'm
Mm,
just there typing crazy like this,
mm.
and they're just having a conversation.
Yeah, it's brilliant, isn't it?
That's like schizophrenia,
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah, it's
it?
brilliant. Yeah.
And
Right,
I
a
thought,
writer will know
this
exactly
is what
where
happened.
you are.
I was writing, and I just thought, no, that doesn't work. So I just got this idea, and I ran with it. And I thought, this book's taking itself off in a completely different direction, not something I
Mm,
planned. Anyway, it turns
mm,
out it's worked out okay.
mm,
So the book I'm actually writing now, book 4, is not really like the book 4 I half planned
mm,
earlier. It starts out the same, but then it's gone off on a tangent. And
mm.
so, okay, fine, we'll run with it and
Yeah,
see what
yeah,
happens.
absolutely. Yes. Because you can always use the bit that didn't happen in another story or some,
Yeah,
as you
exactly.
say, never remove any of it. Just see
No,
how it
I
goes.
don't throw away any writing,
Yeah,
just in case. It's always
yeah,
useful.
absolutely. So that's your what's next. You've got several things on the go.
I've
Because
got
I
to.
think,
Again, it's just a matter of fitting everything in because I
mm,
have to prioritize what I'm doing. I can't sort of have like 4 projects on the go because I just don't have the time for that.
mm,
I have to have
mm,
a project with a few little things on the side just
yeah,
to think
yeah.
about.
Well, I suppose with no contract, in theory, you don't have a deadline, which could be useful.
Mm.
But then if you had a deadline, see, if I have a deadline, I'm more focused because I know I have to get it done by a certain point. And
Yeah,
I hate missing deadlines. I'm not the Douglas Adams
yeah,
that where they whoosh by. Um, so
yeah.
fingers crossed, fingers crossed. It's not too distant
Deadlines
future, and they love
focus
it.
me.
Mm.
Yeah, deadlines focus me. So if necessary, I will sit up till 3 o'clock in the morning and that type of thing because it's job on. Let's get this done.
Well,
But it is more relaxed not having. But then there's the worry. Like if they say no, what then? I've
mm,
written this book with nowhere to put it, and it's a one of a
mm,
series, so I need it
mm,
to go with the others.
yeah,
Who
yeah,
else is going to take it?
yeah. And
Uh,
what kind of marketing do they wish you to do? And what kind of marketing do you
um,
do?
to be honest with you, again, it's a time thing. I do
Mm,
very little marketing myself.
mm,
I rely on them entirely.
mm,
I've got a website, but I haven't looked at it for the last 3 months. I'll be honest with you. I really should. Um,
And do you maintain that, or do they do that for you?
no, I do that.
Okay.
Uh, I'm on their website. I'm on their lists. I'm on
Mm,
the blog. I'm on that. So I
mm,
rely on them entirely for that type of
mm,
thing.
mm,
I just do bits and pieces as I get time. But
mm,
we're planning a bit of a blitz come September when the kids go
mm.
back to school, and the baby. I say the baby. She's starting preschool. She's 3 now,
Nice.
but
Mm,
she's starting preschool, which means I have my mornings back.
mm,
I still have to pick her up at 12 o'clock, but
mm.
until 12 o'clock, I have my mornings back.
Yeah. And
Um,
do they know you're a writer? What do they think?
the children,
Hmm.
I was just Nana. She's just
Okay.
doing her stories again.
Okay.
They know I'm a writer, but they don't understand, if you know what I mean,
No. No,
what that is.
what it
They
is.
know I'm a
Yeah.
writer.
Yeah.
My granddaughter Grace, who's 10, she'd be 11 come Christmas.
Mm,
She's also showing signs of writing and doing her bits and pieces, and she likes that. And it
great.
was quite funny actually. But I was invited in because her parents work. I pick her up from school, and she's going into year 6 in the junior school now. So I went in to see her end of year work,
Mm,
and I was reading her book, and she'd written quite a few good things, and the head teacher had written some very complimentary things like, I love the detail in your stories, and I love reading this, and this was a very
mm,
funny story. And
mm,
I just said, hey, so maybe you're going to be a writer like me. And she went,
mm.
no.
Oh,
Oh, okay then.
oh.
Just fine. I
She'll
was
come
probably the
round.
same as 11.
Yeah. She'll come round. There's nothing quite like it, is there? I mean, I was late 30s when I sort of really took it seriously and thought actually, because I'd grown up. I always blame Stephen King for me wearing glasses because I'd go to school, come home, buy the book if it was out that day, come home and read some, and then do some homework, and then eat, and then finish off the homework, and then I'd be carrying on reading until the light had to go out, and then I bought a torch and under the duvet because I was just so gripped by these massive, which is ironic because now I read short stories. I can't, as an editor, I can't. I struggle reading anything much more than a short story because I'll pull it apart too much. But yes, I was an avid reader growing up.
Yeah,
Um,
it's the same with the
but
torch and the
when you
radio on
think about
really
it,
low so your mum didn't come in. So
mm,
and I'd be there reading
mm,
with my torch, yeah, because the light
mm,
had to go off, and yeah, I
yeah,
remember I went through a phase of reading Catherine Cookson's, and I'd be there reading Catherine Cookson books under my covers with
mm,
my torch.
mm. Are you description? Because I suppose a balance in a lot of crime novels are. I always recommend half description and half dialogue because description is the narration and then dialogue is the characters. So no less than 50% dialogue.
Yeah,
Do you
well, that's one
find
of the
having?
things I was pulled up on when I sent in Bluebird to start off with,
Mm,
and we were always sort of told in writing group and so on, and even at school when we were talking about writing and so on, about how important description was. Uh, and so, having been a police officer in the 70s and the 80s, and this is set in the 70s, I was quite keen to get the detail right. And they have to say, like, there's a bit too much detail in here, And I said, I didn't think you could have too much detail. Well, actually, yeah, you can. It's obvious you know what you're talking about, but it's not terribly interesting to read. Can we lose half this?
Yeah, it's a fine balance, isn't it? Because some readers, I mean, Catherine Cookson is because it's going back so far in time, and Catherine Cookson readers will want to know all the detail about the clothing and the area and the how hard they have to work and the cost of living and so on and so forth. And there will be readers now who want to know all that detail. They want to know the trajectory of a bullet once it leaves the gun. But then other readers, it's the page turning, isn't it? Other readers just want it's plot, get to know the characters, make sure that they're okay by the end of it. And there has to be that pace to keep it going. And which is where I think you have a good balance of, you have a bit of description and then you have a scene where they're talking. So you have the dialogue in there.
Well, that's the thing. I was so keen to make it accurate. And they were saying, is this, well, you can have a bit to make it so accurate, but just please, to be honest, most of police work is pretty boring. And I've had to, for the sake of the story, I've had to speed things up. Things would actually take much longer than they are taking in the stories.
Sure.
But I was trying to get the authentic thing, and I thought, no, you really can't do that. So it's actually not terribly interesting. So, I've had to, as I said, there's enough detail there to give a taste of the reality, but it's been trimmed right back now, and I think it's better for it, to be honest with you. It's because it allows the plot to move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, is there we will be coming back to your books another time, but is there a minor character in your book that you'd like to see, that you're toying with the idea of making more a major character in another book, perhaps?
A minor character. I've had a couple of characters creep up on me. Steve was always going to be Sam's sidekick. He's going to be a friend. He starts out as a tormentor and becomes best friend. And a few people saying you need to get Steve and Sam together.
Right.
Well, by the book 3, they're not together.
Okay.
Sam's with what used to be their inspector, and Steve's seeing another girl, and it's all getting very serious. What happens in the future? We'll have to wait and see.
Knows? Yes, absolutely.
Yes, but for now,
no plot spoilers. Yes.
No, but for now, we'll the friends, but that's it. I'm trying to think another character. I've got a character in book 4 that's crept up. John Batt. He's another police officer who started out as basically one of the background crowd, and has now got his own panda and is
okay.
And Sam rides with him sometimes, that type of thing. So people sort of creep up. I think, I need someone to do this. He'll do, and then suddenly he's a character, with his own name, his own background, and it's like, oh right, okay.
Writing a series, how do you keep track of how tall they are and what color hair they have and what color eyes they have?
Well, people started saying that I needed to keep like a folder with who and what and the rest of it, but I'm a very visual writer. I see scenes and I write what I see, and it's the same for the characters. I know them. I hold them in my head. I've got things scribbled, the basics, and I've just thought, what's the point of this? Because I know her backstory. I know her. I know Steve's story. I know Phil's story. I know, and I can picture them in my mind. I've had a few people I used to work with say, like, that's me, isn't it?
Yes, that was my thought. Whether you
no, it isn't.
Okay.
I mean, I have a friend, Steve, who I'm still in touch with after all these years, who I went into Bebington police station as my first posting, and he was the Sprog before I was. And so we became friends, and we're still in touch now after all these years, both married, grandchildren, um, but he's going, Steve's me, isn't he?
Yeah. Well, that
No,
was my
Steve.
first thought. As soon as you said his name, I
Yeah, I
thought,
went,
oh, I bet he
no, I
thinks
pinched
this.
your name, Steve. That's it. I pinched your name. That's it.
Yeah.
And he goes, yeah, the curly hair. And then,
Yeah.
your hair wasn't that curly, Steve. It really wasn't. And you just think, I say that. No, you don't.
Oh, well.
Steve, my friend Steve is convinced that Steve is him, but he isn't. He's
Yeah.
actually an amalgam of a few people.
Yeah. And that's often the case, isn't it? That you pick a trait from something, from someone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Brilliant.
yes, Steve's convinced he has. Do you know how many Steves and Andys there were when we were at our age? How many Steves and Andys? I said it's one of the common names,
Yeah.
Steve, Andy.
Sure.
And yeah, it's me.
It's nice. It's nice that he's read it. That's the thing. I think if you have someone who says, "Oh, well, yeah, such and such is me," they've read your book. That's
Yeah.
lovely.
I've had a couple
Yeah.
of people just say, that person there, that's this other person, isn't it?
Right. Right.
No, nobody is anybody. They're all
Yeah.
just made up. They've all come out of my imagination
Yeah.
and possibly distant memory, just
Yeah.
no.
Well, it's all in there somewhere. Because I came to writing at proper writing at 37, and I thought I've lived such an ordinary life, and I've never really done anything. I was a secretary, which then means I can type really quickly, which is handy. But I thought I haven't lived a life. How am I going to think of things to write about? And everybody has, most writers, especially when they get to a certain point, have more ideas than they can cope with.
Mm.
So,
Well, I
and
used
we
to,
watch TV and
yeah.
read
So
books.
when I was on nights, I was a police officer in the days when we used to actually walk the beat,
Mm.
and getting your own panda was quite a thing, because you wanted your own panda. But we used to walk the beat, and on
Mm.
nights, in the days when everything used to close, and you'd be walking around, and it'd be dark and it'd be quiet. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning, and there were no calls. There was nothing to do, but there was no, it's like telly, no mobile phones, nothing.
Mm.
So you just used to play little games with yourself, and and I wonder how many steps it will take me to reach there, and you'd see if
Right.
you're right. It's stupid stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I used to think up stories, and I'd think about incidents that I'd dealt with, and think that could have gone so wrong. If that had happened instead of that, that could have gone
Mm.
so wrong. And then
Mm.
it's got me started on the what ifs, and that's
Absolutely. Yes.
and
We
that
in the last session we
and
had
that's
a
where the
what if.
stories came from.
Exactly.
I'd think of a
Yes, we
story
did.
because this is where the original story came on. So, what if that had happened and then
Mm.
this happened
Mm.
and oh, that's like this little
Yeah.
story buzzing around there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of what I call fiction fodder in there. If you've lived through the experience of especially more than a decade of being on the beat, then yeah, there's plenty in there. I have high hopes that I shall be interviewing, well, if I'm still around in 30 years' time to talk about your 30th book. Anyway, it's
in 30 years' time, it is unlikely I will be here.
oh, 29
But
then. We'll settle for 29.
29, okay, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much, Trish. And we shall chat again about the first in your series, and then the second, and then the third, and hopefully the
Okay.
fourth by then. Okay.
I
No,
look
it's
forward
been a
to it.
pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye
Bye.
bye.